Hello, everyone. Good evening from St. Petersburg, Florida, but good morning to you all who is watching this panel from India, which is experiencing this early morning. I'm Baybars Örsek. I'm the director of the International Fact-Checking Network, and you are watching Global Facts 7. And now we are going to be joined by a great panel from among Indian fact-checkers, which will be the first panel of the day, which we are dedicating to fact-checkers in the country, and we'll be discussing some of the challenges and the circumstances that have been the fact-checkers have been experiencing lately. So if you allow me, I would like to introduce our panel. First of all, I would like to say hi to Bal. Hi, Bal. How are you?
Thank you, Baybars, for having me here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good to see you. And now we are also joined by Pratik from Ahmedabad. Hi, Pratik. How are you? Pratik, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hi. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good. Good to see you. And we are also joined by Karen Rebelo from Boom Live. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hi, Baybars. I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here today. I really look forward to our discussion. And last but not least, we have Pratyush Ranjan from Vishvas News. Hi, Pratyush. Good morning.
Hi, Baybars. Very good morning. And thank you for having me on this beautiful Global Fact 7. So looking forward to have a great discussion and debate today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So as we have discussed this earlier in a couple of different occasions, India has becoming, well, it already has become the largest country in terms of the number of verified signatories. According to our latest figures, India has 13 verified signatories who are part of our code of principles and our network. So a lot of discussions have been done around India. And I was also fortunate enough to be in India and meeting with the fact checkers in Delhi and in Mumbai last October. And today I am hoping to pick it up the discussions that we had in person back in India a couple of months ago and see what has changed so far. Well, so many has changed so far, especially in the last couple of months, but hopefully today's discussion will be a fruitful one for those who are willing to know more about how fact-checking is being done in India and what are the challenges that we have been seeing lately. So I would like to start with Bal. And first of all, again, thank you so much for joining this conversation today. Bal, I think so many things have changed the last time we were together back in Delhi. And I would like to hear your thoughts and takes on what has been the biggest change in terms of the pandemic and the earlier lockdowns and the protests that you have seen in India, and what were the implications towards the fact-checking community, and what has India today done particularly to address and cope with those challenges in the last couple of months. And also, hopefully, this will be also an opportunity for those who would like to know more about your organization India Today and their fact-checking operation. So hopefully you will be able to walk us through with some of the things that you think is worth sharing through this conversation.
Thank you so much, Baybars. First thing is, as everywhere else in India, the last few months, last few years, and in fact, especially last few months have been very eventful. We never had given so many stories, fact-checking stories in the span of that we have done in span of last few months. Definitely, as the things kept on changing, the scenario of fact-checking, the scenario of the trend of fake news also changed quite rapidly in India. So I have just tried to summarize everything that has happened in the last 1 year, especially last few months, into a 5W1H slide. So next slide, please. So this is the like what it has been in India broadly. This is the misinformation ecosystem in India. Next slide, please. So what are the things that dominated the fact-checking scenario? What are the things that which were trendsetters? So definitely pandemic is one. But pandemic had different shades of misinformation, different shades of fake news in that we'll discuss. And then it was the pandemic started with a disease and then it gradually changed color to communal corona, and then it became totally religious thing. Then obviously there was something, the Citizenship Amendment Act and NRC. Then there was Kashmir. And among all these government schemes that were offering something which were not exactly there, but fake news about government schemes. And then Delhi riots, everybody knew that Delhi riots became quite infamous. So there was a rioter in Delhi. Next slide, please. So everybody knows that where these discussions are happening. So it is a well-known fact that WhatsApp is the biggest platform when it comes to people communicating in India. So what was WhatsApp? There are more than 400 million users of WhatsApp, which is the biggest in the world. So WhatsApp was definitely number one, followed by Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and interestingly, we can see that TikTok, I mean, about a year back, TikTok was just a medium for youngsters, but now we can see that TikTok has become a major platform where fake news is being generated and being shared, and followed by, lastly, Instagram. Next slide, please. And when was this happening? So these are you can say these are the points which are the major triggering points that happened. That corona outbreak was one. Then there was Tablighi Jamaat. So this was when exactly this corona took a communal turn after Tablighi Jamaat. So then it was being said that now corona has become corona jihad. It was being said that Muslims are deliberately spreading corona in India. Then there was CA NRC, which spanned for a couple of months. There were protests all around in the country, especially in Delhi. Then there was Article 370, as we know. And then now we can see that there are many things coming to relating to Indo-China conflict that is going on. Next slide, please. And then who are the people who are doing this? Obviously, we can see that the people who want to push certain kind of cultural belief, they are at the forefront. There is a tug of war between who can push their political agenda more, and we can't say that it is coming from both the sides, but we can definitely say that the right wing prevails in this war of pushing their agenda. And then there are political agents. Then there are clickbaits who just want to create the content, shocking content, which will bring more and more people to their website or their pages. Probably they are making money out of it. And lastly, interestingly, ignorant people are I think that we have seen that it is not ignorance, but rather it is agenda which is pushing the fake news. Next slide, please. And why this is happening, we know that there are ideological leanings. People think that this is right. They want to push their belief. Then there is political agenda. Social media is also biggest reason, because we can see now more and more this trend that somebody will push something which is not correct, and they will sell. It starts with the disclaimer that mainstream media will never tell you this. So let me tell you this. For many people in India, social media is the platform, is the place from which is their primary source for news. So they get social media is one. Internet is very cheap in India. That is one. And then there are people who just want to create clickbait so that they can get page views, and they are probably also collecting data which they want to use for other purposes. Last slide. And how this is happening, definitely we can see this is common everywhere. The people who are creating fake content are encashing on fear and panic. Then they are pulling out pictures or videos which are out of context from other countries, from a sliced piece from a video, then a manipulated content, doctored, morphed content, then shocking videos with a narrative which has nothing to do with the original videos. And then there are clickbaits which promise you that if there is a new scheme that the government has launched, or somebody has launched, a company has launched, and they just promise something free, and then they want people to click that. So broadly, this is how Baybars the things have been unfolding in India for last few months and over a period of last roughly 1 year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bal. I think we will be probably seeing more innovative and also groundbreaking approaches by Indian fact-checking organizations to tackle this misinformation problem at a scale, because since India is not only is the largest, the number of organizations in the fact-checking community, but it's also the largest country in the world that has a functioning democracy. So there is a big demand for information, and fact-checking organizations play a big role in this. And I'm hoping to also hear Pratik's takes on how alt news particularly has been handling this, overload of misinformation, and what has been what has been at your center of focus lately to tackle this in this large scale, Pratik.
Hi, thanks for having me here. So Alt News is a not-for-profit organization. We are purely a fact-checking organization, and we do not do any kind of original reporting. We started in 2017, and ever since then, much like Boom Live, Karen is the other panelist here, we focus purely on fact-checking and no other reporting. One of the reasons why India has had so much misinformation is because misinformation has been completely weaponized by political parties, and especially the right wing in India. But on top of that, there is also the issue of complete lack of digital literacy in largest sections of the population. We are a developing country, and there's more and more internet connectivity, which is reaching different parts of the country. And there are people consuming this information not knowing what is true or not. I can guarantee that there's a large section of population in India who may not even be aware that there is a software called Photoshop, or that pictures can be morphed. So that is the situation that we're dealing with, that people are not even aware that that such kind of manipulation happens on the internet. And all of us have grown up with the idiom, see what you believe. So that is the situation that we are dealing with. And in terms of misinformation, we saw, what misinformation did to Myanmar, and how sectarian riots were all over the place. I think India is not far behind in terms of what misinformation has done to India as a country. And that is probably one of the reasons why we see so many fact checkers coming up from India, knowing how much misinformation is impacting. And plus the challenge of fact checking in multiple languages. We have over 24 languages, which is majorly spoken and written, and to fact check across all these spheres, because what the political parties these days are doing is that they're ensuring that whatever propaganda or disinformation that they create, the propaganda need not always be disinformation, but whatever propaganda and disinformation that they create goes to every section of the country. And that is the challenge that fact checkers are facing. And on top of that, we have these rumors, which probably are not there in any other part of the world, these child kidnapping rumors, which have caused mobs to come out thinking that there are child kidnappers out there wanting to kill people, and that has led to actual people without any criminal records getting killed just because of misinformation. And this impact of misinformation has extended to this COVID period, where news channels, mainstream media news channels, and the kind of news gathering that they do, and the kind of things that they say, where they focus on very specific issues when they are targeting communities, that has led to marginalization of communities in India. And any kind of misinformation that is triggered causes people to come out on the street and actually attack people. We have had Muslims in India being attacked regularly partly because of the misinformation that is put out on social media. Can I have the next slide, please? Right. So, but lately, what has been the case is, I would just want to sort of focus on the last few months, and that is the COVID period. To start with, what happened was when COVID came to India after about a month of it starting in China. I think the first case was on January 31st. And so initially, during the initial phases when there weren't many cases in India, the misinformation in India largely revolved around what was happening in China, and all sorts of China being the kind of state that it is it is the least transparent amongst most of the states. We didn't know what is happening inside China, and that is why there's all sorts of information that was put out about what could be happening within China. And so, for example, one of the rumors that you can see on the screen is about how there was this video which was extremely viral, and not just in India, all over the world, where it was being claimed that Chinese police are shooting COVID patients. And there were 4 different clips which were put together to put this kind of information. And even in India, this kind of misinformation is becoming more common. That is, it is just not the garden variety misinformation that we used to see. This is more advanced kind of misinformation where you take up unrelated clips, unrelated audio clips, and put together to claim something which is completely fictional. Can I have the next slide, please? Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, and the previous slide. Sorry. Yeah. So and as the pandemic sort of came to the Indian shores, what happened at the start was that there was a bunch of medical misinformation that was circulated among and this was by very important. It started from the government itself, where government has Ayush ministry, a whole ministry which is dedicated towards homeopathy, Ayurveda, and so on and so forth. And they claim that there's this one particular drug which has a prophylactic impact, and that if you have that drug, you're not going to get COVID. And because it came from the Union Ministry, the government of India, and then forwarded to all the state ministries, this information literally went to every corner of the country that having this drug is going to prevent coronavirus. And this is the kind of thing that sort of creates a false impression in people's mind that you have this drug and you go out and you're going to be safe. Even though there was lockdown, it started with the government creating this false impression that there's this drug which can prevent COVID. Can I have the next slide, please? And soon after, what happened was that India faced a double whammy. It was not just the fear of a pandemic which had no possible cure and all these magic remedies being put out. There was also a huge amount of hate mongering against Muslims. India probably is one of the few countries where religion was targeted at the time of COVID, and accusing members of the religion that they are deliberately spreading the virus, spreading the epidemic. And this was because there was this particular event in Delhi where there were a bunch of, there's a sect called Tablighi Jamaat. They had organized an event, and this was at the time when there was COVID almost all around the world, where there were international participants in this event. This became a hotspot, and people from this event then went to different parts of India, taking the infection along with them. While the event was widely discussed, but then what that turned into was this one event being used to target the entire Muslim community in India. And then there was right wing, which was churning out deliberate misinformation. They were taking out old videos without context and claiming that, look, these are Muslims trying to spread coronavirus in India. And what that led to was the Muslim community feeling targeted. And there were cases where members of the Muslim community actually reacted by attacking medical workers and things like that. Can I have the next slide, please? And the kind of misinformation was, in India, it isn't the level of the kind of misinformation that puts out. I did say earlier that people are getting more sort of putting together more complicated kinds of disinformation. But in most cases, even now in India, the kind of misinformation is very simple. That is, you take some video or image which might be of past or present and twist it and put it out. And that is the thing that we continue to see. That is a very rudimentary form of misinformation, which ideally should be fact-checked across multiple media organizations. It is not just the fact-checkers who should be looking at it. In India, fact-checkers have a very limited, except for a couple of the mainstream media fact checkers who have joined us, who have joined the IFCN signatory thing. Fact checkers have very limited exposure to people at large, and unfortunately, the mainstream media hasn't taken this up in a larger way. Can I have the next slide, please? And the problem with and the other problem that India is facing is that even people who are IFCN signatories, like India Today is one of the signatory, there are broadcasts that go out of their channels, which have multiple elements of misinformation. In this case, Örsek is a sister channel of India Today, and they are putting out the video of a religious guru who claims that if you stop your breath for so many minutes or so many seconds, then that is a test for coronavirus. And this is something that India Today themselves have fact-checked. So unfortunately, news production and fact-checking are not going line in line. And I think that is the biggest challenge, that now we have something called PIB fact-check, which is a fact-checking body by the government. And they're actually pulling down fact checkers and pulling down media organizations in the name of fact checking, bullying media organizations, and there are not enough people calling them out. So, in India, finally, what we have is a multifaceted dragon, where you have fear because of the pandemic, hate because of this continuous polarization against the Muslim community in particular, and then we have mainstream media organizations who have a huge hand in putting out misinformation. So that's it from me for now.
Thanks, Pratik. I think we have a couple of things that we can spend the next couple of minutes, after our next two panelists, to discuss more, obviously. But I'd like to also ask Karen basically the same question, and also keeping in mind that we will also have time for the Q&A. And I also already have a couple of questions here, both from our audience and the questions that I already prepared. But before that, Karen, would you like to also walk us through with the same points that you have seen lately in the perspective of Boom Live?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Baybars. First of all, it's an honor to be here, and it's a real pleasure to be among a very esteemed panel. So when Baybars, emailed me about being on this panel to talk about misinformation in India, about protests and riots and a pandemic, I said, oh my God, how do I concise the last 18 months in 10 minutes and give you an overview? So let me try and do my best, and some of it will be a repetition. I'm calling this India's information disorder. We'll start with the next slide, which talks about Boom Live. So Boom Live started fact checking in November 2016. Currently, we are fact checking in English, Hindi, and Bengali in India. We've started taking baby steps in Bangladesh and Myanmar. We have primarily we fact check through articles. So we have text articles, and then we do videos. We conduct verification workshops, and we have a podcast as well. We started working with Facebook as a third-party fact checker for just before the Karnataka elections. That was in April 2018. Next slide, please. So this is where we're at the moment. Sorry. Last week, out of the blue, there were reports that a clash had taken place between Indian and Chinese troops, where 20 Indian soldiers, including a commanding officer, was killed. This is pretty seismic from any perspective. From a misinformation perspective, even more so. Beijing, on its part, and the Chinese side has been silent on the number of deaths. In such a scenario, you can imagine that it triggered a wave of misinformation. So I just counted, from June 16th to about 23rd, we had already done about 17 to 18 fact checks on this issue alone. And it's still going on. The image that you see on, on your screen is a list that was circulated claiming that it shows names of the 56 Chinese soldiers killed in that skirmish that took place in Ladakh. But if you just Google that list, And you'll see that on the next slide. If you just Googled the list, you would see that the names have been picked up from Wikipedia. They're actually names of former generals. So if you look at the list from 1 to 31, and then you look at the senior generals from 1955, you see it's an exact cut, copy, paste. The rest of the list is also a cut, copy, paste from two other pages on Wikipedia itself. One mainstream channel has already been called out for peddling a WhatsApp forward as list of casualties from the Chinese side. So this is currently where we're at. If you rewind to 2019, on the next slide, please. Can I have the next slide? How do I summarize 2019? I mean, it was an election year. We knew it was going to be crazy, but we kick-started the year, unfortunately, with a very serious terror attack that took place in Kashmir, where over 40 soldiers were killed after being targeted by a suicide bomber. Immediately, within a span of 2 weeks, we had the Indian Air Force come on television one morning and say they've launched a retaliatory strike at a training camp across the LOC. This is just months before a general election is scheduled to take place, where you know you're going to be bombarded with misinformation. Cut to May 23rd, Narendra Modi has won a landslide victory. And we think, okay, we're gonna get a chance to catch our breath, but no. What happens in August? In August, you have the government revoking Article 370 and Article 35A, which basically gave the state of Jammu and Kashmir special status. So you have a state suddenly bifurcated and sort of lowered down and is currently categorized as a union territory. While all of that is happening, and still we're absorbing, the flood of misinformation that's not only coming from India but also from Pakistan about Kashmir. You have the Citizenship Amendment Act that was passed in the latter half of the year, which triggered again a wave of protest. And then finally, you have an event where the police in Delhi stormed into a campus and attacked students. So it's been a crazy year, and it's no understatement to say 2019 was like a dry run for all of us for 2020. I think I'm more relaxed in 2020 than I was in 2019. So next slide, please. I just want to go over a bit about our coronavirus coverage. I think we realized early on that this could be a big story. We did our first fact check on coronavirus towards the end of January. In February you had elections in Delhi, and then you had a riot, so the coverage got diverted a bit. Come first week of March, you have cases, you have reports of cases coming, showing up in India. Since then, we've been running a live blog. It's been running since March 3rd. We also have done interviews with doctors and experts about various aspects of the pandemic. And more importantly, we've done a study on what we were seeing, because we didn't just want to react to it. We wanted to understand what was happening. So we did a study on our fact checks on coronavirus. On next slide. So this is an in-house study that we released in the first week of May. We took a time period from January 25th to May 3rd, and we counted that we had 178 fact checks. Now, our analysis showed that a bulk of these fact checks were communal rumors, particularly targeting the Muslim community, and false rumors that they were responsible for spreading the virus. If you look at that infographic or that word cloud, you suddenly see from January to about, and then you go down to April and you see the word Muslim there crop up very prominently. So we wanted to understand, how does it go from, when we started off, we were fact checking rumors like coronavirus is a bioweapon, coronavirus was created in a lab in China. Then we went on to cures, saying garlic water cures coronavirus. Then we went on to some misinformation about the lockdown. And then all of a sudden, There was an event in Delhi which, a missionary group they called the Tablighi Jamaat, which my fellow panelists have also spoken about, held a congregation and then dispersed members of that congregation traveled to other states as well. And that congregation was singled out and was held responsible for spreading the virus. So that is captured even in the word cloud that you see, where all of a sudden, fact checking in misinformation about a pandemic suddenly turns communal. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is my final slide, and this has been, some of the observations from this pandemic is that marginalized groups that were already being targeted are further targeted in the event of a crisis. That was one aspect that we noticed. We also noticed that we had increased our traffic to our website. We had increased our Twitter followers. That's a good thing and a bad thing, because it means that more people are looking for claims, but also means that there's a lot of misinformation circulating. Finally, Pratik spoke about it as well, where we talk about weaponization of fact-checking. The government's own a government agency has gotten into fact-checking, where just denials are passed off as fact checks. Any information that is critical, and any news coverage that is critical is dismissed as fake news, and that's extremely problematic. Finally, I mean, I'm really ending on some very depressing notes over here. We've been alarmed by the number of announcements, or other shadow announcements of layoffs in traditional newsrooms. It affects all of us. It's a very scary scenario, and this does impact fact checkers as well, because we are a subset of the journalism in India. The work we do is in a lot of ways derivative and dependent on the coverage that's out there. So I do anticipate a lot of challenges going ahead for fact checkers in India. And with that, I will hand it back over to you, Baybars.
Thank you, Karen. And I think where you left was very important. I mean, we have been talking a lot about the growth of fact-checking in India, but we never probably spend enough time on the risks and challenges that we might see in India in the next couple of months or years. And I think that's also going to be probably discussed in the next session after this one, but we will hopefully have the time to dive deeper into this one through the questions as well. But before that, I'd like to turn to Pratyush and also ask his takes on how Vishvas News has been trying to cope with those challenges in the last couple of months, particularly amid the crisis around the coronavirus and the communal violence in the country.
Thank you, Baybars. Let me first introduce Vishvas News to everyone. So Vishvas News is a fact-checking initiative of Jagran New Media. And Jagran New Media is the online wing of Dainik Jagran Group. So in the last 1.5 year, Team Vishvas News has published more than 1,500 fact-check stories on its website. The unit started with just 3 people, led by Editor-in-Chief Mr. Rajesh Upadhyay. And now we have 20 plus certified and trained fact-checkers doing fact-checking in Hindi, English, and 9 other languages. So what we do, we just follow the mission statement by Jagran New Media, which actually talks about to create factual and credible content that empowers New India, New Bharat through knowledge, information, voice towards better health, education, and growth, leading to an inclusive and progressive society. So next slide, please. So what is our motto? What is our objective? So our exact objective is the importance of dispelling fake news, break the chain, and how it will be done. So Vishvas News believes in empowering people to understand what is fake news. Only then the tools will work for them. And the first thing about that is the awareness. Think before you share, think before you forward, think before you like. And empowerment trains citizens to identify and debunk the misinformation. And we provide all kind of support to the people who want to understand how to observe fake news, how to deal with the fake news, how to debunk the fake news. So what is the problem? So I'll talk about the problem first. India is a country where the people used to consume news from printed medium since long. The first newspaper printed in India in 1780, and the first Hindi newspaper printed in 1826. So it's almost 200 years ago. So since then, people in India have a tendency to believe what is printed. So they just believe what is printed in front of that's coming in the medium of newspaper in front of him. So the belief continued till today. So this is the problem. Like first, before they were reading information in the newspaper, but now they are reading the information in social media platforms. But the tendency to believe what is printed is still there. And that is the problem, because 425 million readers are there, still there according to the data we have till the first quarter of 2019. So, if I talk about online readers in India, estimated there is 500 million online audience is there in India. So, if I talk about number of fact-checking units, certified fact-checking units in India is 13. So, if one agency, one unit publishes not more than 10 stories in a day, so it goes like 113 in a day and over 500 in a month. So to deal with the issue of fake news in India, those 500 stories in a month will definitely not work. So Vishvas News actually managed to read the message between the lines, and we decided to talk to the people, conduct sessions, go to the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and conduct fact-checking training, fact-checking sessions to directly talk to the people, because this is the most important thing, to make people understand what is fake news and how to deal with the problem coming through social media platforms. As Bala said in his presentation, and everyone knows that the problem of social media platforms like WhatsApp, the rise of WhatsApp and the rise of WhatsApp with the option to forward is the main issue here. So what we do, we Vishwas News invested our time and resources to empower, make people, make them aware to how to deal with the fake news at their end, to actually that will actually help them to understand what is the fake news. Next slide, please. So if I talk about COVID, so you can see the slide here. So we, since February to June, we have published more than 400 COVID-related stories only, and you can see those stories are divided in these categories. Like we published stories about the nature of origin disease, about vaccination and medicines, about boosting immune system. That was really a big problem, because every second post was about to boost your immune system to deal with the COVID. And most of the stories were about the fake news, about the patients, about lockdown, about religious divide, about the local issue related to lockdown and COVID, and about fake posts attributed to WHO and Health Ministry also. So we actually categorized all fake posts coming to the social media platforms, and we published more than 400 stories. And there we understood that only publishing stories will not help. So we actually launched our flagship program, Sach Ke Sathi. Next slide, please. We actually launched a flagship program, Sach Ke Sathi, first edition during India's general election. So we went to 9 cities of 5 states. We did this program in association with Facebook. We conducted 36 sessions, and our motto was to reach out to people in different categories and genres. Like we tried to reach out to senior citizens. We conducted a separate session of senior citizens in all 9 cities. We conducted separate session for women also in all 9 cities, because these two groups are there who actually consume news most of the time in a day. And we were very surprised to know that these people they had so many questions. How to identify this is a fake news? I mean, so many information coming to them through WhatsApp and other social media platforms. They don't know how to deal with it. So we had a very good sessions. We had very good sessions in all 9 cities. So similar thing we did in February this year, just before India went under lockdown, COVID lockdown, and we went to 6 cities in 5 states, and with 2 Sach Ke Sathi flagship programs, which is about the digital literacy, we actually created a group of 3,000 plus fact check champions, and I'm very happy to say that we have a group of 3,000 plus fact check champions in 12 cities who are actively working in their cities and giving the required training to more other people in their social circle. So now the number is like they have already trained more than 100,000 people in their own cities in their own social circle in 12 cities. So this is how we are trying to deal with the issue. Next slide, please. So as I said, we have 3,000 plus fact check champions in 12 cities, and the community is highly active in their own cities who are conducting basic fact checking trainings in small groups. And Vishvas is very committed to support all of them to grow the hyper local fact check community to fight against fake news, because the problem lies there. The 500 people are online. That also means that most of the people are not online. They just consume news in newspaper. They don't know the technology. So they will go and use the tools only when somebody will go to them and tell that this is the tools. This is the 3 and 4 step process from where you can go and debunk any fake image, find some video is edited or not. So we believed in that thing, and along with the publishing our stories in 11 languages, we also went to the people in different cities and train them to deal with the issue. Next slide, please. So this is how we are actually working. We are working in 3 steps. First, we are publishing stories in Hindi, English. We have expanded our network in the Hindi. There are 14 plus Hindi speaking states in India. So we are trying to reach out to those Hindi speaking people on all 14 states. Next slide, please. And along with this, we are also trying to reach out to non-Hindi speaking states also. So we have expanded our network in 9 other languages apart from Hindi and English, and we are trying to reach out to those people who are not actually Hindi speaking, but they have their own language, and they need to understand what is viral and what is fake in their own language is being circulated as information. So as I said, we work in 3 things, three ways. First, we are reaching out to people through our stories published in 11 languages. Second, we are reaching out to the people who are actually living in tier 2 and tier 3 cities to make them understand what is fake news. Third, we are very much active in producing our content. We have introduced one maker-checker system in our Vishvas News Desk, and in this system, the person who is doing the investigation doesn't have the right to publish the story. We have just introduced this system to make the copies error-free, and it should be like if we are saying it's a fake news, it should be a fake news. There should not be a 0.1% error in that thing. So we have introduced 3 things, and next, please. So what's next from here? So we are working hard with a team of 20 certified trained and fact checkers to take the fight of misinformation from here. And with the help of 3,000 plus hyper-local fact champions, we have created a network of 3,000 plus fact champions. And we are just hoping that with the help of all those people, we'll deal with the issues in the coming days with fake news. Thank you, Baybars.
Thank you, Pratyush. So I think we can just pick up from where you just left. As you know, I was also able to say India is the largest country in our network with 13 different signatures right now. And I personally, in my capacity, pay a lot of attention on the organizations in India, particularly on their, sustainability and longer term visions. So maybe we can have like another 50 minutes of conversation with all of our panelists all together and discuss a couple of things along with our audience. And we also have been having a couple of questions, and I will be also benefiting from those questions as well. But before that, let me start with to ask you how you feel the long-term sustainability and security of your organizations, given the fact that India has been, experiencing a lot of different events compared to many other countries in the region. What has been the largest factor of driving force for your organizations, both financially and also administratively? How you see the future for your organizations? We also had a couple of questions asking what are the things that you feel optimistic, hopeful about the future. So maybe we can merge these two questions and hear from all of our panelists in just short answers in 2 to 3 minutes maximum. And I'd like to first start with this time with Karen and see since they are the first, if correct me if I'm wrong, but they're I guess the oldest fact-checking organization in the country. So how you have been seeing this from your point of view, Karen?
Sure. I don't know if we are the oldest fact checker in India because our sister website fact checker was verified before us. But I mean, it's an extremely precarious scenario in India right now, both in terms of sustainability and in terms of figuring out where we go from here. Currently, a boom is sort of sustaining itself on its partnerships with tech platforms, and a small portion of it is subscription from readers as well. But with everything changing in India, it's really hard to say where we go from here in terms of in terms of visibility of the business. So that's what was the second part of your question, Baybars? I'm sorry, I lost you there.
What is the thing that you feel optimistic about future of fact-checking in India? I mean, we had talked a lot of things about the challenges, but what makes you feel excited and hopeful for the future?
Sure. So I've been with Boom since Feb 2017, and when we started off, it was just the three of us in the sense that there was Alt News, Boom Live, and SM Hoaxlayer. And as you can see, that these tiny organizations, which were really less than 5 people led organizations, punched so much above their weight that we forced. I would like to think we forced the mainstream news organizations to create a fact-checking unit because, the work that we created had an impact in people who were sitting up and taking notice. And so you have a Times of India, which has a Times fact check. You have an India Today, which has a fact-checking unit. You have Jagran, which has, they're all traditional mainstream media. So at a time when fact-checking was dismissed, as something that was just I remember an editor telling me, saying, oh, why would we do this is fake. I mean, and another one telling me, when do you plan to come back to real news? So I mean, hopefully that perception has changed by now.
I agree. I think it's not that easy to call fact checkers when you're going to go back to the serious real journalism, right? I don't think it's the case anymore. Pratik, would you be willing to pick it up where Karen left?
Right. Yeah. So I think Alt News is probably the only organization which does not have any partnerships with anybody, whether it is corporate bodies or tech platforms. We have no partnerships whatsoever. We are completely dependent. So in terms of finances, we are dependent on donations. And for about last 1 year, we have been getting enough donations to cover all our salaries. And besides that, we also have a grant. And the donations are about, the average donations are about $15 per person if you look at how much per person is donating. And I think that has allowed us to create a model where government cannot sort of come and tell a big advertiser that you cannot push money into Alt News, you cannot donate to Alt News, because we have moved away from that system, which is what ails the Indian media ecosystem, that is big advertisers deciding the editorial thing. So at least for now, we feel that we are sustainable. We have been, whatever donations we are getting, it's been good enough for paying our salaries. But the only thing that we ensure is that we are a very small team. We know that a donation-based company is never going to be a very big team. So we go with that, and then as Karen pointed out, small organizations have been punching much above their weight and creating a difference. So that is the plan going forward. That is what I look forward to is more people realizing the value of independent fact checking, more people coming into it. There are a lot of people talking to us. We are also creating technology. There's an organization, there's a company in Pune in India, a city which is where they are actually creating software for us, technology for us to so that we can respond to misinformation without human intervention, things that we have already fact checked. And we also putting more and more focus. We are trying to write a book on fact checking as to how to fact check, and we hope to put it out sort of as a free copy. We basically believe in a copyleft philosophy. So I just hope that there are more people who sort of go in that direction where there's more transparency in fact checking, and that is what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you, Pratik. I'd like to also hear from Bal. So, I mean, this is one of the things about the fact-checking ecosystem, not only in India, but around the world as well. I think its diversity and its richness in terms of different backgrounds, different organizations. Our State of the Fact-Checking report just recently released that more organizations are leaning towards for-profit organizations, and I think that's also the case in India as well. So, Bal, I mean, a part of the fact-checking unit of the India Today, one of the largest media houses in India, I can imagine that you might have a different take or at least an experience on this one, but I think that will be really valuable for our audience to hear how India Today positions itself in this very fragile and vulnerable media environment.
Yeah, thank you, Baybars. The thing is that, as you rightly said, that India Today is one of the biggest media organizations in the country, and we have multiple platforms, more than 3 TV channels. We have websites which are biggest, which have the largest reach. We have the YouTube channel, which is the only news channel in the world to have a diamond play button. So in that sense, we face a different kind of challenge, which is different from the smaller organizations. Probably Pratyush should agree that when mainstream channels, mainstream media organizations also run a fact-checking team, so then their expectations are kind of different. So I would like to focus, as Pratik was saying, that and rightly so, that there is a reach is a challenge for smaller fact-checking organizations, and which is totally we can understand. We do not have the challenge of reach. We have ample of reach. We have millions of followers, millions of subscribers, and across that we do the fact check stories not only in writing, but we turn it into a video channel, into a video, into a postcard, into a meme that goes on the TV channel, that goes onto a website that is covered in TV channels. But Pratyush should agree that when there seems to be some lack of understanding. I really find it funny when somebody says that India Today or Aaj Tak channel did cover this, and Aaj Tak covered this, and the same thing was also fact check. I really find it funny because there seems to be lack of understanding. Just because the fact that a media channel, a big media organization, is running a fact check organization, a team, that does not mean that it is the entire media organization is turned into a fact checking organization. 24-hour channels, which has millions of followers, people look forward to. We have a different role. A 24 hours news channel has a different role. People expect that if there is a breaking news, they would get it first on our India Today and Aaj Tak. So they do not look for fact-checking stories on Aaj Tak TV channel. And it is also the fact that if being a media channel where people look into it, so we are not going to censor somebody if a minister says that the sunlight can kill corona, which is wrong, but we'll still cover it because he's a newsmaker. If the government says that this homeopathic drug will cure coronavirus, we'll still cover it. We know that this is wrong. Similarly, if Ramdev, which Pratik was pointing out, which is everybody knows in India, that's a big newsmaker. He has millions of followers. So he says something, we'll definitely cover it. We'll cover it because there are millions of people who just want to know what he's saying. That does not mean that we are propagating what he is saying. Every newsmaker, if a minister tomorrow says there's a drinking cow urine can cure coronavirus, or it is a medicine for coronavirus, we are going to cover it. But at the same time, we are also going to fact check it. And the fact they are going to say that this minister, this person is saying so that it is not right, it is not, do not believe this, this is what we are saying. And the fact check article, the fact check video will go on the same platform, will have the same kind of reach. Billions of people will do that. So that does not mean that a news channel can do the fact checking. The news channel, which is basically into the business of breaking news, can do the fact checking at the speed of breaking news. I do not think anybody in the world can do fact checking at the speed of breaking news, which is not possible. Because a news channel, pretty well that how much time and resource it is scrutinizing every new piece of news that we do take. So I find it really funny when somebody says that India Today also covered this, and India Today fact check did something which is opposite. India Today fact check, when we are putting something, and like Pratyush would agree that big media organizations do have a different kind of challenge. The challenge is to ensuring the same kind of scrutiny, to ensuring the same kind of stringent measures to across the organizations. But when 2,000 media organization is run by 2,000 people, it is impossible that all the 2,000 people in the media will just be doing the fact checking.
Bal, thank you. I just see the 5-minute warning, but I just want to give the also floor to the Pratyush, and also maybe suggest a couple of different resources for our audience as well. But before that, I just want to be mindful of the time. I also like to hear from Pratyush, and then maybe we may not be able to have the time for the second round of questions. But let's first hear Pratyush first.
Yeah, thanks, Baybars. So yeah, as I said, Vishvas News is a fact-checking unit of Jagran New Media. So we have the support of Jagran New Media, and whenever we go and like we launched Saske Sathi program. So we did this program 2 times in association with Facebook. So, and also we are trying to go to subscription model, and I'm sure that will work for us also. So that was the first thing. The second thing the Bala talked about, Jagran is a huge brand and network. So this is India's largest newspaper daily. So we actually publish more than 3,000 stories per day in online section. And Vishwas News is a team of just 20 plus fact checkers in 11 languages. They're working in 11 languages. So we have a limitation to produce stories, which is a fact check stories in a day. The number doesn't go more than 5, 6, or 7. But yeah, we understand the problem is big. So how to deal with this problem? So we actually have started the training program within our organization. So both for Jagran New Media and for Delhi Jagran also. So we have started the training program. So our editor-in-chief, Mr. Ashwapadhyay, also started. It's been more than 1.5 years, and the process is still going on. So yes, everyone should understand what is the problem and how to deal with this. But the level of the newspaper has a limitation. So the newspaper got published in 12 or 12:30 midnight, and so till the time it is coming to my house, sometimes the news gets changed. So in online edition, if is working, the Jagran desk do the changes, but we cannot say that those things which are published on online editions have the corrections, and the paper had published something that didn't have the correction. So definitely the correction goes in the second day's edition. So yes, so this is what I wanted to say here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pratyush. I already feel like we should have arranged this panel not for 1 hour, but at least for 1 hour and a half. But I think that will be also good encouragement for us to explore, to take this discussion offline and see how we can navigate through the different, organizations and their backgrounds in India. But before that, if you allow me, I just want to say goodbye to, well, thank you, first of all, to all of our panels, and wish them a great day ahead. And I'm not able to see them right now, but I feel them in my heart. Karen, Pratik, Bal, and Pratyush, it's been great to have you here during this conversation today. And I'd just like to also introduce, or at least give the heads up for the next panel that we will have again among Indian fact checkers. It will be 10:30 a.m. Eastern India Standard Time, and will be moderated by Jensi from Boom, and he will be joined by Rahul from Fact Crescendo, Srabi from Internews, and also Trushar from Facebook, who will be discussing the regional challenges that the Indian fact checkers have, given the fact that India has more than 24 of languages that are widely spoken around the country, across the country. And as you already have seen in today's conversation, the diversity and the richness of the context of the fact-checking field in India requires a tremendous amount of localization and local context. So hopefully you will also find that conversation useful. And until then, good evening from St. Petersburg, Florida, and enjoy the rest of the conversation, part of the Global Facts 7. Thank you.